Hey there, my friend. Steve Gamlin here. Welcome to the Motivational Firewood Radio Show. We actually have the bonus of video this time because I wanted to make sure to capture this conversation. Today, I'm talking to a gentleman who actually reached out to me recently and said, your name popped up as somebody I might want to connect with. And I'm so glad we did. And we were just laughing off camera, talking about how our very first conversation was actually longer than any radio show we've each ever done. I recently had the great joy of being a guest on his show, and here we are with him on mine. So I want to introduce a gentleman named Devon Harris. Devon is, you probably know his story, and I did. Devon was part of the original Jamaican Bobsled Team, and he competed in 3 different Winter Olympics, and he's going to share a story with us today. He's also the founder of the Keep On Pushing Foundation, which is, here's something I love about a lot of people and many people who cross my path. They want to give back. They've not only created their own mission in life, but they want to turn around, reach their hand down that mountain a bit, and lift other people up. So please help me welcome Devon Harris. So happy to have you here, my friend. And I consider you a friend. We've had so many great conversations now. And welcome to the show.
Hey, bro. Thanks for having me, man. It's awesome. Great to be able to connect and be on your show.
Yes, thank you.
Don't ask too many hard questions, okay?
I promise not to ask too many hard questions because, and it's funny because, I'm from New England. You currently live in New York, up here in the USA. And you had your beginnings in Kingston, Jamaica, which most people hear Kingston, they think of Bob Marley.
Indeed.
You're also from Kingston. And in our very first conversation, we talked about the power of visualization. And that's my lane. That is something I work so hard to educate people on and help people with. And yet you had a special spot in your area of your town in Kingston. Why don't you describe that spot where you could stand and you could kind of see your future?
I like how you put that, a special spot. So I grew up, as you mentioned, Steve, in Kingston, a place called Olympic Gardens. And no, that's not where we raise our Olympians. It's just an area of town. It's actually one of the tougher ghettos in the world, I would say. It's Olympic Gardens is impoverished, it's violent. And I grew up in this little shack in Olympic Gardens. But just outside, my gate was this lamppost. That was my hangout spot when I was a teenager and not in school. I spent most of my time in school, away from the neighborhood and the environment. But yeah, I would stand at that lamppost and I would dream. I had this really clear view of forest hills lined with big, beautiful mansions. And I would just kind of look up there and dream about, living in a nice neighborhood, traveling the world a little bit, seeing some, doing some special things, speaking to cool people like you. And it's kind of interesting because we discovered during our first conversation, you are kind of the visualization guy, the vision board man, as it were. And not only during that exercise at my lamppost, but in my track and field career earlier on, I used visualization a lot. I didn't have a word for it. I just imagined myself doing things, but here we are.
Yeah. I love that. And in one of your talks that I went online and in doing my research for the show, you talked about having a special song when you were running track. And when you started running track in high school, you ran barefoot, which I'm very happy you did not carry into the Winter Olympics. Just wanted to say
that would have been a little challenging, to say the least. But yeah, so it's kind of, I found that song on YouTube maybe last year, and I kind of remember who the singer was now. But I ran and I kind of adopted the song. The song was telling a story about this young girl who I guess had dreams and she was a singer, and her mom would say, keep on singing, don't stop singing. You're going to be a star someday. And I'm not going to sing for the audience because that would just totally ruin the show, right? But you're going to be such fame in this whole world that people come to see you play.
Yeah.
And I would sing, keep on running, don't stop running. You're going to be a star someday. You're going to be such fame in this whole world that people come to see you play. And I guess, I got to the Olympics. People came to see me play.
Yeah.
So it kind of worked out. Ran like Forrest Gump, man.
Yeah. Oh, just keep running. Now, one of the things we talked about and that you've mentioned is when you were at the lamppost, you could see that richer neighborhood, but you could also see the military base or the military academy that was there on the island. And tell me how you kind of progressed from high school to the military and how that had an impact on the beginnings of you making your vision come true of being an Olympian and being a runner and achieving.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, the two dreams that drove me was one, actually first and foremost, to become an Army officer, and then secondly, to become an Olympic athlete. And so, yeah, when I stood at that lamppost, I dreamt about both of those things. And right after high school, I enlisted in the Jamaica Defense Force. So the military academy I attended wasn't in Jamaica, it was in England. It's a Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, which is only the most prestigious military training school in the world. School of Winston Churchill, Field Marshal Montgomery, King Hussein of Jordan, the Princes Harry and William, and so many other dignitaries, military and civilian political leaders, world leaders, attended that school. And yeah, the kid who was standing at that lamppost. So I tell you, so I got to Sandhurst, and I lived my dream. I got commissioned as an Army officer on Friday, December 13th, 1985, 12 days shy of my 21st birthday. And I remember being back in Jamaica. If you fast forward a little bit, it's the summer of 1987, and I remember having this conversation with myself. I talk to myself every now and again. And so I was talking to myself, and I'm like, so is this it? You've achieved this grand dream of becoming an Army officer. What do you plan to do with the rest of your life? And I was kind of having this kind of stern conversation, like, dude, come on, man, do something. The Army officer thing is accomplished, now what? And I go, yeah, the Olympics. And the Olympics were coming up the following year, 1988, in Seoul, Korea. I was a middle distance runner, ran 800 and 1500 meters, only because in Jamaica, everybody sprints fast except me. And so I figured, I started training. I would go run 5 miles every morning before I reported for duty, thinking that, somehow I could get fit enough to qualify for the Olympic Games. And run about that time, 2 Americans who lived in Jamaica came up with the idea to start a bobsled team. Couldn't get any other guys on the summer team to do it, so they came to the Army looking for athletes. I guess we were the only guys in Jamaica who were brave enough, or maybe foolish enough, to want to try this thing. And my colonel suggested, quote unquote, that I tried out for the team, and that's how I ended up at the team trials.
Wow. Now, big in Jamaica at the time, and probably still, you were part of, or there was a prevalent push cart, whether it's
Yes.
association or league, or it's a very big thing on the island. So these two guys apparently saw the basics of not only people who can run fast, but work together as a team, because it is a team of 4. And they saw something happening there, and they had this idea of creating the Jamaican Bobsled Team.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how that came together. We do have the pushcart derby. I've never done it myself because it's really dangerous, and I just don't do dangerous things. But our pushcart is kind of like bobsledding, 2 crazy guys or 4 crazy guys going down the side of a mountain in a cart.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is that we didn't have the ice. But they saw that, thought it looked like bobsledding. And then, of course, we have sprinters, and a big part of a bobsled race is a start. You need sprinters. But fortunately, when they got rebuffed by our sprinters, they didn't give up. They came to the Army. And, So it was run about that time as I'm training and thinking about going to the Olympics, right? The visualization piece that we spoke about. And sometimes the thing that you visualize doesn't quite work out exactly how you pictured it. Sometimes it just works out so much better, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me. I was visualizing competing in the Olympics in '88. Well, I did from in February instead of, I don't know, August or September. So I was ahead of schedule. I just kind of worked out really, really nicely because I think we have so many summer Olympians in Jamaica. It's like, ugh, boring. And it's really cool to be a winter Olympian from Jamaica.
Yeah. And to be among the first who did it. And of course, like you said, you visualized the Olympics. You saw the Olympic rings. You just didn't see the thermometer.
I missed that piece. Yes.
That piece.
And if I did, I just assumed that it was hot.
Yeah. So here you are, part of the very first team of people. Now, I'm big on teams. I've got a recent article called "Which MVP would you rather be, most valuable player or most valuable partner?" And I'm very big on putting the best people around you at all times. Did you know the other gentlemen who were part of that first team with you already, or did you kind of come in and grow as a team?
No, you're right. We all met when the team was selected. So 3 of us were Army, but we did not know each other prior. I was still very young in the Army and still, wet behind the ears, as it were. And then there was one civilian guy, Samuel Clayton. So the first time we came together as a team, so to speak, was when we met at the airport. So we were all told that we made the team, and you don't know who the other people are. And you turn up at the airport and go, oh, yeah, I remember you. Oh, yeah, I remember you. Yeah, I remember you. And so the team started kind of gelling there and then. I tell you this, one of the things that I believe made it easier for us to kind of come together as a team was the fact that 3 of us were Army. So we kind of brought the Army mindset to this thing. And it created a little bit of a tension with our civilian guy, Sammy, because he didn't think the way we did. And he sometimes complained that the soldiers were ganging up on him. And we're like, hey, let's go, and he just moved at a very different pace, but committed, a patriot. He, by the way, unfortunately succumbed to COVID-19 this past March. Yeah.
Oh no.
But he contributed valiantly to our program, and we appreciate him for everything he did.
Wow. What and I'm very sorry for the loss of your teammate. What do you think you've carried from that experience into everything else that you've done? Because again, you're just not a person who said, oh, I did that, and then just stared at that, that trophy, that medal, that experience, that photograph for all these years. What do you think has been the thing that came out of it the most that is still impacting you right now, and everything you're doing now and everything you plan to do in the future? Because you and I are both still standing at our lampposts.
Yeah.
Even just in our minds and our hearts, always looking for something else.
The next thing. I think the biggest lesson that I've taken away from bobsledding is the fact that you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. It's not, oh, you can learn to bobsled in a really, really short space of time. Yeah, I figured that out as well. But that's the bigger lesson, man, of, hey, if you really put your heart and your mind into something, you can get it done. And then perhaps the next lesson right behind that is that you shouldn't wait until, and I say this practically in every speech I give, do not wait until everything is perfect to go pursue your dreams. Yep. Because I tell you, in our early days, I look back at pictures now of our team training in the first few weeks, and it's like everything was wrong. I mean, not even close. But that's what we knew, and that's what we did. And now I've competed in 3 Olympic Games. Our nation has competed in 7 or so. We started there doing all these things incorrectly. But what I know is that when you start, man, and not get so hung up over getting all of your I's dotted and your T's crossed is that as you launch and you progress, you start growing, you start to get stronger, you start to get smarter and wiser, and you start, building a body of experience and knowledge that you can build on to take you to the next level.
Yeah, and every little scar has a story to it, whether it be a scar on your arm or your
Physical
leg,
scar or emotional scar. Absolutely. I mean, it's you have to be in the battle to understand, to best understand how to fight.
Mm.
Success is an experiential endeavor. You can't, as soldiers we do push-ups. I can't do your push-ups for you and you expect to get fit, and vice versa, right? We have to each do our own push-ups. And it's the same with anything else we do in life. You kind of have to jump in the fray and mix it up a little bit and get scratched up and punched in the emotional solar plexus sometimes. And so you learn and you grow and you get stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are 6 tips that you share in your speeches. I've seen recordings of your speeches. And one that really struck me is we need to be 100% responsible for everything we do. And no excuses. And you can't, and it kind of goes back to waiting for everything to be perfect. It can't be perfect because we're not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And someone asked me,
and I know that's something that you believe in as well, Steve. Look, things are always happening in our lives, but I think we have to, as much as we always love the good stuff, we don't like the stuff that's yucky. And we like to claim the good stuff. You have to claim the bad stuff as well. I mean, a business fail, relationship explode, whatever. You played a role in it. And so you have to come to that realization. You have to accept that, you know what, things are crappy in my life right now, and it's not because of the government. There are some external forces that are impacting you, but you always have a choice over how you respond to these things. And so when you choose to accept personal responsibility, you actually empower yourself. When you're pushing off the responsibility, the fault, the blame on others, then you leave yourself with nothing to work with to improve your scenario, your situation, right? Because if it's somebody else's fault, then they have to fix it. If you're going, man, you know what, my bad, then you can start figuring out what you need to do to improve.
Yeah, exactly. And you hit it right on the head when you talk about how we respond and react to things around us. If we just keep saying, well, they keep changing the rules or making the rules, or they keep creating a situation that's not letting me succeed. We got to accept the good with the bad. And what too many people forget, especially right now, the world is not a perfect place for many reasons. But the good in the world is just as real as the bad. It all comes down to what you focus on and how much you believe in yourself to rise above whatever's going on and just say, look, I get that that's not perfect, but here's who I am. And here's the difference I can make. And here's the value I can bring. And maybe, just maybe, I can surround myself with these people who are all going to work together and all push forward in a more positive direction to at least show the rest of the world that it can be done. And you're still doing that. And you did that back in 1988 at the Winter Olympics with the very first Jamaican Bobsled Team. And I'm sure it raised some eyebrows when people said, oh, wait a second, that's a pretty warm island.
Still is.
And I believe it still is. And I wanted to ask you a question. When did, because of course your story was told in Hollywood style in the movie Cool Runnings. I mean, one of those characters was based on you, I mean, in your life. And I'll put you on the spot a little bit. How well do you think the story was told? And it doesn't just mean accurate, but how well do you think it was told? I've always found it to be a very inspiring movie, and I've watched it at least a dozen times.
Yeah, you need to get out some more. Stop watching so much TV.
I don't go anywhere anymore.
I felt they did a good job of depicting the spirit of the team. And it was a comedy that was loosely based on the true story. But they captured the spirit of the team, pretty well. Underdogs fighting to overcome, guys who just like were like a fish out of water and just found a way to adapt and adapt quickly. I say this all the time, and I mean it with all sincerity. In many ways, the true story was even more remarkable than what was in the movie. And I can see how, like, for example, Chris Stokes joined our team during the Olympic Games. He was not on the, in fact, he wasn't even on the team when he came to the Olympics. He came down to watch his brother race. And it's the second week of the Olympics, and we decided that week that we would enter the 4-man race. We were not entered. We had never raced a 4-man sled. And that was the first time Chris was seeing a bobsled in his life.
Wow.
But we recruited him that week. And in 3 days, we taught him how to push a sled. And at the end of the week, we pushed the 7th fastest start time. Now, if you put that in a movie, people go, come on, man, that's a bridge too far.
Right.
But that's what happened,
Yeah.
So little stories like that just made the true story more remarkable than what was in the movie.
Yeah.
But still loved it. I thought it was a good human interest story, very inspiring kind of movie I would enjoy, even if it wasn't about me.
Yeah. And see, I always love, I always cheer for underdogs. I try to never be, a fair weather fan or jump on bandwagons. If somebody's got my heart, they got my heart pretty much forever.
Yeah.
And that goes with my sports teams. That goes for individuals. That goes for people I hear about in the community doing something good, maybe coming from a situation that was very less than perfect, but rising up in their character and in their integrity and just doing something nice. Man, I cheer those people on louder than I would a World Series or a Super Bowl championship. And even if it just means I'm here in my studio and I'm going, that inspires
and that's
me.
the thing, people ask me all the time, like, who inspires you? And sure, you can choose one of the famous names and I'm inspired by their story, but I'm also inspired by, that man I meet in the airport who, overcame a terminal illness, or that lady who's just had a world of troubles and is still smiling through it all. I mean, I think they are such shining examples of the indomitable nature of the human spirit that's in all of us, and an example of how any of us can overcome anything with just the right mindset.
Yeah. And when you think that way, when you have that mindset in the heart and soul that keeps looking for those little glows on the horizon. Here's something I told someone just the other day. You will never, ever, ever run out of heroes. That way.
Yeah. And you know what? I think if you're pushing yourself and just trying to be kind of like one of the heroes that you are looking up to, you can become a hero to yourself, quite frankly, because you look back and go, wow, I did that. Yeah. And so you become inspired and more motivated to push forward. But in the same breath, you're also becoming a hero to somebody else. And that's perhaps the coolest part.
Yeah. Somebody asked me one time, who are your favorite, who are the most important people in any audience, whether you're speaking, whether you're on a Zoom interview or a radio show. And I always say the same thing. It's the person who sat way in the back, who may have come in late, who won't make eye contact, who won't take a single note, who won't speak or raise their hand, or that person who's just way out on the edges, but still they're leaning in listening. It's that person in the shadows. I said, that's the person I have to work the hardest to reach, because I used to be that person who didn't feel they were worthy of being in the spotlight or on the stage or close to the action or involved in the conversation. So when I'm old and gray and they have to wheel me out on a stage to speak, that's still the person I'm going to try to reach the most. And you living your story and still living your story. I mean, you're not just talking about what happened all those years ago. You're here, you're right now in the Keep On Pushing Foundation. And you're still seeking out those people who may need a hero or encouragement or want to be heroes themselves, but maybe they just don't quite know where to look. Explain what the Keep On Pushing Foundation is all about and how and why you started it.
Yeah, but you drew a really beautiful analogy though, about, the guy or the girl who is in the back of the room or on the edge, just, listening in, leaning in, not necessarily taking notes. And you recognize that that person is actually you,
Mhm.
um, and having a desire to constantly reach that person. And that's how I feel about the work I do with the Keep On Pushing Foundation. So we started at my old elementary school. And so back in 2006, I visited the school and I'm having a conversation with the principal. I'm like, so what's the biggest challenge you have here? And it was many of those kids were coming to school hungry. Now we know if a child is hungry, they don't learn. And if you don't learn, what happens? You don't get educated, right? And look, in Jamaica and places like Jamaica, if you missed the bus, you have missed the bus. Here in the US, you can go do a GED and get government grants and so on and find your way back. It's infinitely more difficult in places like Jamaica and places like where I'm from in Jamaica. So I understood that. And, when I see those kids, I see me. I am one of those kids who like, running around the same class, schoolyard, playing soccer and all the other games we played and sitting in those same classrooms dreaming about. In fact, I didn't even dare dream about the things I'm doing now. That was so other universe,
Yeah.
from that vantage point. So my goal is to help. So we started supporting a breakfast program there, a school supplies program. We're right now halfway building a little building. It's a nurses station, is I guess how you say it in America, a sick bay, a place where kids who are not feeling so well can go hang out during the day. And it's as I mentioned earlier, a very volatile, violent environment. So kids are having some serious emotional issues as well. So it provides a quiet place where the guidance counselor can, provide some direction and guidance and so on. So that's what we're working on, and medium to long term to grow the work beyond the old neighborhood to across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean, um, to reach all those little young Devon Harrises who have big dreams and need a helping hand.
Yeah. Now, being where you are right now and who you are right now, if you look back, and the reason I ask this is because I actually recorded another show this morning talking about a conversation I had with somebody who turned out to be a mentor, a coach, and inspired me to do what I'm still doing today. And that conversation for me happened in 1993. In my first year of working in radio, someone pulled me aside and said, it may not be here, it may not be soon, but someday with your work ethic, your attitude, your sense of humor, I want you to produce my morning show. And that to me was a dream. And this
Mm-hmm.
person who was kind of still a stranger, we weren't really friends yet, pulled me aside one day and said that and planted that little seed. And 6 months later, they made a job for me to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
looking back, can you think of a person or a conversation that really flipped the switch for you and kind of gave you that nudge to say, A, wow, I could really do this, and B, this person just helped me to believe in myself enough to do that?
Whenever I'm asked that question, Steve, I always go back to my grandmother, man. It's her fault. Uh, Love her to
Grandmothers are
death.
the best. They
Yeah,
just
man.
are.
And my granny was the absolute best, man. I spent my early years with her, until I was 4 or 5. And the thing I remember, unfortunately, she passed away before any of this even began to
Mhm.
materialize. But she planted the seed. She was an amazing storyteller and just told these amazing stories. But the one that stuck with me were the ones she told me about soldiers and the incredible feats, the feats they could perform and not get hurt. And they were impossible, but they were doing it. And I didn't know if I could do it, but I want to do it. So it just kind of lit a fire in my little 5-year-old imagination. That inspired me to want to join the army. But more than that, it inspired me to want to do things that other people thought were difficult or impossible. And so that was where the seed was planted. You know, obviously you kind of have to nurture it, and other people have come along and other experiences have helped me to kind of grow that seed of confidence into a guy talking to you now. But yeah, blame her, man. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be talking to you.
Yeah. And I've had, my grandparents. Isn't it amazing? People that have gone through and experienced so much in life, they tell the stories, and they might just be sitting and holding you one day that you're scared or not feeling well. And they'll just tell you the story. And to them, it's, they just do it so freely.
Yeah.
And what seems effortlessly, but the wisdom that comes with age and experience, and them telling a story to you, you're wide-eyed, you're this little kid, but they're telling it like it's just a story.
It's like it's entertainment, and it's but it was so much. It was inspiration. So there was.
Yeah. So she was the speaker before you and I were.
Absolutely. She's not nearly half as educated as I am, but so much smarter, so much more wise.
Yeah. And I've always believed that intelligence and integrity has nothing to do with a piece of paper on the wall. It's your heart, your soul. It's your whole being, and it's who you are. And part of the definition of integrity, I always hear it's who you are when people aren't looking.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that same heart, soul, and just desire to rise up, to be better, because it brings everybody else up with you, I think that's the best way to live. And you don't need a fancy corner office or a fancy name tag or a title or any letters after your name to do that,
Yeah, you're right, man. So I think it all comes down to, the business of having a purpose, having a desire to want to play a part in the world that's bigger than yourself and outside of yourself. You want to look around and see, wow. So I have these skills and this knowledge and experience. How can I use it? In what way can I use it to help somebody else? Because, Steve, whether we want to accept it or not, we have all benefited from someone who we'll never meet in our lifetime who helped somebody, right? So it's the whole pay it forward principle, right? So that one person who helped you was helped indirectly 2 or 3, quote unquote, generations earlier. So in essence, you were helped by that person as well, and so we have, I think, a responsibility to do the same.
Yeah, most definitely. And one of the tips that you share in your talks is the same as what I share. And of course it's a pretty common thing, knowing why you do everything. Because that, I believe, is the gas in the tank to know why.
I said that?
Yeah, you said that. It was in your top.
Let me check my notes.
Yeah, it was in there. It was in your speech, in your TED Talk. Yeah. And as soon as you said that, I said, man, I really, really like this guy. Because we come from the same place, and not everybody in industry does, and I get that, and people are different everywhere. But you and I know how important it is to know why you want what you want, because that's going to keep you going when the light in that lamppost goes out for a while. And it's dark, and it's
you're right, though. It's you have to connect with the reason why you want this thing, man. Because you're right, the light on the lamppost is going to go out. It's just going to get tough. It's going to get dark at times, right? And the hills are going to at times feel steeper, more difficult to climb. And if you are not connected with that, why the hell would I want to climb this steep hill in this darkness? Then you're going to lose your way. You're going to turn around, and you're going to go back to, quite frankly, a situation that you didn't like in the first place. Yeah. And the only reason why you're settling for it is because you have lost touch with your why.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people say, well, I'm going back to my comfort zone. Well, if it was that comfortable, why did you want to climb higher in the first place?
Exactly.
You know, I describe it as going back to the bottom of the mountain and looking at the parking lot and the porta potties, and that's not a great view.
No, that's not a great view. I agree.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing I have recognized, which I've said in speeches as well, is, you know, you get to the top of the mountain, you know, to use your analogy, at the base of the mountain, look at the parking lot and the porta potties. But if you stay in touch with your why, man, and you put the effort in, and it's hard and it's painful and it's tedious and it's frustrating and disappointing and all of that, but you get to the mountain, damn, that view is amazing. And you get to see even further now.
Yeah.
You go, wow. So that all of that is over there too. Wow, I better go get some of it. Yep. Right? So go as far as you can see, for when you get there, you'll see further.
Yeah. And always surround yourself with the best climbing partners. And I've done some hiking and a little bit of climbing here in the Northeast. And every single time I've gone up, I meet the greatest people who've already been to the top and they're coming back down, and they'll say, oh, you're going up this trail today? Yeah. When you get to the top, go to the right because it's the best view of the bay of the giant lake nearby. And I've just always found that the higher you climb, the cooler the view and the cooler the people you find, because it is so much more rewarding for me anyway. And I've just always been this way, to celebrate it with someone else who can share the experience. And
yeah, I agree.
Do that in the Olympics with three other gentlemen.
Precisely. You know, you need other people, you need teammates, you need partners to take the journey with you, right? It makes it easier because, again, no matter how connected you are with your why, every now and again you are going to feel frustrated, and you're going to need somebody to give you a little, in a word of encouragement or a swift kick up the, you know what. You know?
I've got some boot marks from my brothers and sisters, my tribe. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what I mean, those people are going to be there to give you exactly what you need in the moment. And then, yeah, you know, it's sad if you're celebrating all by yourself. So you need people there as well to celebrate with you, but also to give your life a certain amount of purpose, because as they're helping you, you now have an opportunity to return the favor and help them. So again, playing a role outside of yourself.
Yeah. And I'm so honored to have you on my show. And gosh, this is our third conversation now. And surprisingly, it's not the longest one. How can people reach out to you to perhaps have you speak for the organization or the company, or to learn more about you, or how they can help your foundation? How can people reach out to you?
Easy, man. So my website is www.devonharris.com, and my email is easy. Devon@devonharris.com. Thought I'd make it easy. And through like Twitter and Instagram at keeponpushing88. At keeponpushing88.
Awesome. As we wrap it up, Devon, because I do want to honor your time, and I so appreciate this interview. I know I originally told you, it'll be this long. I'm going to pay you the ultimate. I lied again. I'm going to pay you the ultimate compliment. Our conversation has been effortless in the best way possible.
No, this has been awesome. We've just been rapping, man. Just having the only thing missing is a beer and the sand.
Hey, just two friends sitting on the beach having a conversation.
If you use your imagination.
With a bunch of people sitting all around just listening in on a conversation.
Indeed. Dude, it's been an honor and a lot of fun as well. I appreciate you inviting me on to share with you and your audience. So I want to challenge you, as I do with everybody else, and encourage you and your audience to keep on pushing.
Awesome. I love it. Devon, thank you so much. And I look forward to continuing our conversations and bringing more good stuff to the world and helping some of those people climb up out of the shadows a bit.
Yeah, man, let's do that. I love that.